We need to discuss these documents immediately. It's urgent.
I wasn't supposed to find it. That much was clear from the way everyone froze when I mentioned the envelope. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Doors that were always opened suddenly closed, and the HOA president, who never showed emotion, looked at me like I'd just stepped on a landmine. It started as a normal Tuesday, one of those boring, quiet days where nothing ever happens in the neighborhood except lawnmowers and barking dogs. I was only checking my mailbox because I was waiting on a package, but buried under grocery store ads and HOA newsletters was an envelope that wasn't addressed to me. No name, just a unit number that used to belong to the previous owner of my house. Normally, I would have walked it over to the HOA office like a good neighbor, but what caught my eye was the return address. It wasn't a company, it wasn't a bank, it was a law firm, and stamped across the front in bold letters were the words, "Confidential Enclosure." Now, I know curiosity can get people into trouble, but sometimes curiosity saves you from it too. I didn't open it right away. I went inside, put the envelope on the counter, and told myself I'd deal with it later. But the longer it sat there, the heavier it felt, like it was daring me, like it already knew something I didn't. By the time the sun started to go down, I gave in. Inside were copies, not originals, printed emails, financial summaries, and one document that made my stomach drop, a notice of internal review addressed to the HOA board, outlining potential misuse of association funds and conflicts of interest involving executive leadership. Executive leadership. There was only one person that applied to, the HOA president. At first, I thought maybe it was old, maybe it had already been handled, but the dates were recent, very recent, and the name of our neighborhood was right there in black and white. I sat at the table, reading every page twice, then a third time. Payments approved without board votes, maintenance contracts awarded to a company owned by a relative, reserve funds moved between accounts with no explanation, and then the line that made my hands start shaking. Further documentation may have been deliberately withheld from homeowners. That was when I heard a knock at the door. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, it was careful, controlled, the kind of knock someone gives when they don't want attention. I opened the door, and there she was, the HOA president, standing on my porch like she belonged there. Perfect posture, tight smile, clipboard tucked under her arm like a shield. She said my name before I could say a word. "I heard you might have received something by mistake," she said, voice calm, eyes already scanning past me into my house. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. The look on her face changed just enough for me to know she already knew. "I haven't opened it," I lied. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. Relief. Too fast. "That's good," she said, "because it's not meant for residents. HOA business only. I'll take it and make sure it gets where it belongs." She held out her hand. That was the moment everything shifted. I realized something important then. If it was harmless, she wouldn't be standing on my porch after sunset. If it was nothing, she wouldn't be here herself instead of sending an email. And if she had nothing to hide, she wouldn't look nervous over a single envelope. "I'll drop it off tomorrow," I said. Her smile disappeared. "No," she replied, a little sharper. "It needs to be handled immediately." Silence stretched between us. I could hear a car passing somewhere down the street, a dog barking in the distance, normal life continuing while something very wrong sat between us. "I'm busy tonight. Tomorrow's fine." Her jaw tightened. "This is HOA property." "And it came to my house," I replied. For the first time since I'd known her, she lost control of her tone, just for a second. "You don't understand what you're involving yourself in." That was all the confirmation I needed. She left without another word, walked back to her car like nothing happened, like she hadn't just shown up unannounced trying to retrieve something she definitely didn't want me reading.
That night, I didn't sleep. By morning, my phone was full of missed calls, unknown numbers, voicemails with no message, and one email from the HOA board sent to the entire neighborhood reminding everyone about community trust and not interfering with administrative matters. That email had her fingerprints all over it. I decided to do something simple, something quiet. I talked to my neighbor, then another, then another. I didn't accuse, I didn't exaggerate. I just asked questions, and the answers started lining up in ways that made my stomach sink all over again. Unapproved fines, selective enforcement, people threatened with penalties while others got a free pass, contractors who only ever worked in certain sections of the neighborhood. Patterns I hadn't noticed before were suddenly everywhere. By the end of the week, the HOA president stopped making eye contact with me. Board meetings were suddenly members only. Notices stopped being posted publicly. And one afternoon, a printed warning appeared taped to my door, claiming I was in violation of community harmony standards. Community harmony. That's what they called it when someone started looking too closely. The real shock wasn't the documents. It was the realization that this had been going on for years, and everyone either didn't know or was too afraid to say anything. I wasn't supposed to find that envelope, but now that I had, they were panicking, and they were about to make a much bigger mistake. They thought pressure would make me fold, that if they squeezed hard enough, I'd hand everything over, apologize for the trouble, and go back to just another quiet homeowner who minded his own business. What they didn't realize was the harder they pushed, the clearer everything became. The next HOA meeting was announced with less than 24 hours notice. No agenda, no online link, just a printed paper taped to the community board like an afterthought. When I showed up, the room was already tense. Chairs filled with people who looked confused, irritated, and curious all at once. The HOA president sat at the front, flanked by two board members who avoided eye contact with everyone. She opened the meeting talking about landscaping. 5 full minutes about grass height and trash bins. Then she cleared her throat and said my name. She didn't accuse me directly. She didn't need to. She talked about misinformation, unauthorized documents, and individuals who disrupt community trust. Every sentence felt aimed straight at me, but carefully worded so it couldn't be quoted back. That's when I stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult anyone. I just asked a question. If everything is being handled properly, why did the president come to my house after dark to retrieve an envelope she claimed wasn't important? The room went silent. She stared at me, eyes wide for half a second too long. One of the board members shifted in his seat. Someone in the back whispered, "Wait, what?" She tried to laugh it off, said it was a misunderstanding, said she was only being proactive. "So there's no internal review?" I asked. Her face drained of color. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. The next day, the violations started piling up. Notices for things that had never been an issue before. A trash bin too visible. A car parked 1 inch over a line. A flower pot not in compliance. It was obvious, and everyone could see it. That was the moment the neighborhood turned. People started knocking on my door, quietly, one at a time. Stories poured out, fines that made no sense, threats over small issues, requests for records that were ignored. One neighbor showed me an email chain where the HOA president explicitly told a board member not to share financial statements with residents because it would cause unnecessary questions. Another neighbor brought something even worse, a contract, signed, dated, awarded to a company owned by the president's brother-in-law. This wasn't mismanagement. This was deliberate. I stopped answering HOA emails entirely. Instead, I sent one message to the entire board requesting official records under state law. Budgets, contracts, meeting minutes, all of it. They had 30 days to respond. On day 29, I received a letter from an attorney. Not the HOA's attorney, hers. The letter was polite, carefully threatening without saying the word threat. It warned me about defamation, about spreading rumors, about legal consequences if I continued harassing HOA leadership. I read it twice, then smiled, because if they had nothing to hide, they wouldn't need a personal lawyer. I forwarded the letter to 3 people: a local journalist who had written about HOA disputes before, a state oversight office, and an attorney recommended by a neighbor who'd been through something similar. Then, I waited. The response came faster than expected. The journalist replied first, asked for documents, asked for dates, asked for names, and when I told him I had copies and witnesses, his tone changed immediately. 2 days later,